Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about a concept called nesting in Python, and it's a really interesting concept. It's a way to use lists in a dictionary, and there's multiple ways to do nesting actually. But sometimes you want to store multiple dictionaries in a list or a list of items as a value in a dictionary. And in this case, this is called nesting, and you can nest dictionaries inside of a list of items inside of a dictionary, or even a dictionary inside of another dictionary. So nesting is a powerful feature as we're going to demonstrate here in our example. So it's just one of the concepts in Python. So I went ahead and wrote out the syntax for a list as just a quick review, and then the syntax for a dictionary. That way we just recap what that looks like. So the syntax for a list just starts with a variable, and you have the brackets, as you can see here. And you can actually store letters, numbers. There's no particular order. You can store letters, names, and digits from 0 to 9. So that's the syntax of a list in Python. For dictionary, the syntax for dictionary, you have a variable, the assignment operator, and then you have the curly braces. And it's a key value pair. So it's a really great way to store more information about a specific individual. So here's an example, Bob, and the type of breed of cat that Bob has is Maine Coon, and you can actually store more than just one key value pair within a dictionary. So that's the syntax of a dictionary, and this is the syntax of a list. So we're going to move forward or proceed forward with our scenario just to understand the concept. So the scenario here is we want to use a list in a dictionary, and each friend, F-R-I-E-N-D, each friend can have more than one favorite number. So as you see here, we actually have a dictionary, but each key value pair has only one value associated to its key. So the only favorite number, we've only stored one number for Jen, one number for Dave, and one number for Sarah. But let's assume they have more than one favorite number. So what does that look like? So the way that syntax would look like is we can use the concept of nesting, where we can actually use a dictionary, a list inside of a dictionary to store more than one favorite number. So we can say Jen likes 5, favorite number is 5 and 1, and close the brackets. And for Dave, his favorite number is 0 and 6. And make sure we close that off with a ending bracket. And then for Sarah, her favorite number, let's make spaces for visible. Let's say her favorite number is 3 and 4. So, and this is the way we use a list inside of a dictionary, where now the list has more than one value. So this value is associated with this key. So how do we then go ahead and print this out? So let's start with like a simple print statement going through a for loop. So what we can do here is we can actually run this and see what this output is. So what this is going to do is actually just print out the key within our dictionary here. So it should only print out Jen, Dave, and Sarah. So let's go ahead and escape, :X, enter, and actually run this and see what the output is. And as we predicted, Jen, Dave, Sarah, because we only requested the for loop to output the keys within our dictionary. So let's say we want to print the key and the value within our dictionary, within our favorite numbers. How do I print out the key and the value? So the way we do this is, let me insert here. All we would do is really for key in, and then comma value in favorite number, and this is actually the name of our dictionary, and we need to use a method called items, because what this is going to do is say, hey, grab the items in my dictionary and go ahead and print it out. And then we can use an F string and then pass in the variable. That way, what it's going to do is basically take the items here and store them in these variable, and then we've passed it into an F string. That way it gives us a meaningful output in the terminal. So let's go ahead and see if this works. If not, then we'll probably have to work through some mistakes. Yep. So if you can see here, unterminated string, literal. So I have an open quotation mark, but I forgot to actually close it off here. So I have to go back into the editor and make sure I close it off. So I for insert. Let's run this again. And as we can see here, the name, Jen, that's the key. Favorite number, it printed out the value that's associated with Jen. So it actually printed out the list within the dictionary. So let's go back into the Vi editor and entertain this scenario a bit further. But let's say I want to print out each value, each element within the list. So I want to print each individual on a separate line. How would I do that? Well, what we would need to do is actually create another for loop to loop through the value. That way you can print out these individually on a line. And the way that what that looks like is for, this is where I get tripped up with the names, for num in value. And then we'll do \T for tab, because it's gonna indent when it prints in the terminal. So this we would need to do is just pass in this variable here. So what this is essentially doing is we're saying, hey, I want you to take the value of each individual number that we have stored within our list, and it's going to store each number inside of this variable, and then it's going to print it on individual line. So let's see if the code works. And as we can see here, it actually did the \T for tab. It actually indented, and it printed out the numbers individually for each person. So Dave's favorite number, this is what essentially we had the value stored, but we wanted to print them out individually. So let's go back into our Vi editor and look at our code one more time. So just to recap, we talked about Python nesting, and the concept is really using a list in a dictionary. We know that the syntax for a list starts with a variable, and then we have the open close brackets. There's no order for a list. You can store letters, names, digits from 0 to 9. For dictionary syntax, we have the variable, assignment operator, and we use the curly braces. And dictionaries are key value pairs, so it allows us to store more information about a specific individual, about any object that we create. And the scenario that we were working with here is really to use a list in a dictionary. As we've seen here, we have a dictionary, and we were able to use a list inside of a dictionary. And the scenario was we had a couple of friends who informed us that they had more than one favorite number, so we needed a way to actually store that. And the way we do that is we use the concept called nesting, which is using a list inside of a dictionary. Then we used a for loop within a for loop. And what we decided to do here is we gave a variable. That way it can actually store the items that we are grabbing from our dictionary. So it's going, hey, we're telling Python to actually go into our dictionary favorite number and we use the method items. That way it can actually print out the items. And what it's doing is it's storing it inside of these variables. We used an F string to actually give a meaningful output into the terminal. And we passed the variable here into our F string. We then created another for loop. And what we did is we actually took the value, right? We took the value and we stored it into another variable, because what we're wanting to do is to actually print each individual item within the list. So I wanted to actually print 3 on its own line, 4 on its own line. And in order to do that, we've taken the value that had stored that information, and then we then store each individual item in a different variable, and then we pass that into our F string. And we use the \t as a tab. That way it gives us some spacing to see the output clearly. So we can run this one more time. And as you can see here, the name gen, and then it prints out the first for loop, which is the items, because that's the method we used. We wanted to print out the items. But then the nested for loop, where we wanted to print out the individual numbers, that actually allowed us to do that by iterating through the value, and then storing the value into a different variable, and then passing that into a string. And that's really the concept of Python nesting and using lists and dictionaries, using a list in a dictionary.